isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know how to answer that.
Well,
I mean, that's where we are today,
I can answer it. I mean, I think we have a long history in the utility industry of saying, look, we get our revenue requirements, established in these rate cases. We're going to spend, but we're going to save our operating expenses as much as we can, because in between rate cases, that's how we increase our earnings. And, actually, when we have to put product out there, rather than that increasing our revenue opportunities, that actually decreases our earnings. So it's so conflated than any other company would think about, is that, developing product, getting more customers, getting customer value is somehow not going to make it good for your shareholders. It actually makes it bad for your shareholders. So, one of the things that I talk about is that when I think about this, is utilities, and I don't mean this at all pejorative, it's actually true, that like any other company, they're going to figure out a way to maximize their profits within the business environment in which they operate, right? And so the regulatory construct that we've had for the last, since the 30s and 40s and 50s made sense. We were in a period of huge electric demand growth. We had a huge amount of infrastructure we had to make. And so the way we constructed utilities is that, one is you're a natural monopoly. Secondly, you're going to get a return on your investment and of your investment. And that return has to be sufficient to allow you to attract capital at a reasonable expense so you can invest more. We've just totally changed the world now. We're actually seeing slowing and negative demand. But in New York in particular, we have old infrastructure that we have to replace. We looked at about $30 billion over the next 10, 15 years off of a smaller customer base, and a customer base that's using electricity, but it's actually using it, if you will, we're more inefficiently because we're using so much of it for so much of our system. So that suggests to me is the way to make this behavior change, and we're going to talk about more, is change how utilities get rewarded. If all you're going to reward them on is investing in capital, then that's all they're going to figure out how to do is put more wires up, build more plant and things like that. If you reward them on making the system more efficient, if you reward them on driving innovation by allowing third parties to come in and offer more product, they'll figure out how to change their business model. So the big thing that we think about in New York, I'm thinking about it when I look around the world, I don't want to create mediocre wires companies. I want to create excellent, innovative companies that have third parties wanting to come to New York and build businesses around DER because they see that it's a marketplace where they could be successful, and then we can lead everywhere else. So the way to do that, I think, is to really drive the utilities to be innovators. I mean, I know a lot of folks are sort of skeptical, and I think it's right to be skeptical because there's no history of doing that, but I don't see any excellent company that's sort of been regimented as to say, you do the old stuff and we'll do the interesting stuff somewhere else. So
Andre,
that's
I think it's
sort
the
of how we're
innovation.
driving
The
it.
innovation is what's going to change the relationship with
Right.
the utilities. I mean, I was one of those customer service reps where, like, the person would call and say, the transformer outside my house is controlling my brain, and I would have to say, yes, sir, I'm sure you're correct. And so I remember having to do that, and that was, you really did have to pick up the phone every time somebody called. And at some point, that relationship became very separate. The customer and the utility just, with centralized call centers, the people you would call weren't anywhere near the lines. I knew the people who called. I knew who the crazy people were. And so the relationship kind of became separate. And now, because of innovation and because of what you're doing, the relationship is going to have to get a lot closer. And Sergey, I would love to hear kind of how you see that evolving relationship with your consumer. Do you see a pull from your consumers?
Yeah, I mean, let me give you one example of like a cool technology, in a cool piece of innovation that engages the customer. So our our energy efficiency team worked with a company called ThinkEco to develop a way of controlling portable air conditioners. If you think about during summer, our peak load is 20% of our peak load is portable air conditioning. And normally it's just a low, medium, hot kind of switch. Now consumers who are part of this program can control their air conditioner remotely, and they can also get paid if they allow us to control their air conditioner just by a couple degrees during peak times. And people love this device, and particularly the 18 to 35 demographic it really likes being able to control their bills, likes being able to control their energy usage. That's one example. We also have different technology platform investments which are going to allow us to, for example, we're working right now to be able to not only visualize DERs on our grid, but be able to enroll them automatically, do the market settlement and dispatch eventually. So these are investments utilities are making that are really going to enable the vision that REV foresees. So I think 5-10 years from now, that's going to be really a fundamental part of our practice.